Alrighty, let's get the slackers in here. Come on, ye slackers. Hmm. 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 All right, without further delay here. So we got a couple of things we could do. One, we could get a little more into the hybrid stuff. But to be honest, I felt like we're probably pretty solid. We did really what we needed to do there. We did the high voltage disconnect with the service plug. A couple people did hybrid compressors. I feel like we're probably pretty solid. So what we've got coming up for today, like we were talking, for tomorrow, like we were talking about, everybody still needs to do an HVAC box, but we're also getting the diagnosis. So that's what's on the agenda for this week. Now, I understand due to schedules, a lot of you are wanting to do the ASC Thursday, so no problem. I'm gonna rearrange the schedule slightly, which bumps us into today doing the diagnostic simulator work, like I put in the group chat. Which is not really a big thing. The HVAC temp door disconnected, disassembling the HVAC box, not a real big thing. A lot of people got the dash out last week, so you know how to get to the box, but the box had already been removed in most cases. So I'll give you access to the box. So you work on it. And then we did that lecture last week, so we're caught up on all the chapters we need to do. We just need to, we could cover chapter 17, but the truth is, it's really more about future technology. So I think I'm gonna trim on that. You guys are welcome to read that and do that yourself. I think we're gonna jump right into the simulator. But I'd also like to point out there are several other scenarios that you can look at just for your own practice. So here comes like lack of cooling number one. 10 of 10. Did that show like already done? It's kind of weird. Huh. I thought that you guys were going to be able to do that. Okay, no, it will work. So it's lack of cooling, noise from the AC compressor, and it's asking, what should you do? So let's go through this one together. Anybody got any thoughts? Using your automotive knowledge.
Check the main AC operating components.
Okay. Oh, incorrect. 1 point has been deducted. So you could do that. I agree. But at least in this case, they're thinking we should do something else first.
Compressor.
What about compressor? These are the options. Check cabin mechanical devices, check AC pipe system components, performance test AC, check condition of any
Says
airflow.
noise from the AC compressor area, so I'd go
True.
with bottom at this point. I already missed the point.
So you want to go with check AC compressor drive devices? Or do you want to do performance test? Or do you want to, because it's not,
Anybody else?
it's not really saying lack of cooling. The symptom is noise from AC compressor. Let's do a walk.
So then, yeah. Bottom one.
Ooh,
Whack.
compressor drive devices appear to be in good condition. All right, let's talk this one through. It's got a noise from this compressor area. Let's get a hint. You wanna take a hint or you wanna just go with this one?
Let's get a hint.
Let's take a hint. It's gonna cost us a point. What is the first check you do to undertake to verify a customer complaint?
Performance test the AC system, I guess. Verify it's not working.
Yeah, result insufficient cold air from passenger compartment vents. Okay, move on, identify. What should you do? So the first one was verify. So I guess that I kind of steered you wrong. Now that we're identifying, now what do you think?
Perform visual inspection.
Yeah. The third one,
Ooh, I would have went with that one too. Okay,
is not the third one, perform visual inspection of AC system? Or,
hmm,
AC
Okay, no.
compressor clutch right
yeah,
above
the
it.
compressor clutch.
I don't know, what do you think? I could follow either of your, I actually probably would have went with the perform visual inspection, listen to this desk scope, but cool. I don't know, what do you think? Compressor clutch or perform a visual inspection?
I think the compressor clutch.
Boom. What do you think? Hmm, I think more basic. Visual. Ooh, I'm fired too.
Pressure check.
Nice. I'm not sure I would agree with that one, but fine. Alright, rectify. Replace the TXV, rechart. By the way, what did we say for check pressures? Did it say anything? I forgot what we found there. What did did it pop something up? I don't remember what it said. Hmm. Okay, anybody wanna take a stab here?
Place damage and block components.
And did we find something? Did I miss something on that last step? We checked for pressure, didn't we? But I didn't catch what it told us.
No. Go to the previous one and read the bottom one where it says result.
Oh, there we go. Sorry, there we go. I just had to scroll lower. So the system high and low side are considerably low. So if they're both, if low, high is low and low is low, what's that tell us?
No,
There's a leak.
Compressor
no
is not working.
refrigerant.
No refrigerant, so.
So now understanding that.
The
Same.
second
Would it be the
one,
second one?
System as required, check for refrigerant leaks and repair as necessary.
Congratulations, you've resolved the problem. So there's quite a few of these. You can do them just to get you thinking, right? Don't put them like super high. They're a part of a package that came with the book that I thought was cool to include. But those ones are good for you to do for practice. And then there's a few videos if you want to use them, but they're pretty basic, so you should be solid. You can even watch the A7 prep video if you really want, but I probably wouldn't really recommend it because we're gonna do our own. So for now, well, there's two things. One, this one right here is for your diagnostics. So first, write a repair order, right? I was pretty sure that I was gonna actually have you do a diag. Okay, there we go. So you guys are gonna do a diagnosis. I'm gonna give you a diagnosis. I'm gonna give you a car that's broken. And you're gonna do a diag on it. And then you're gonna write up the 3 Cs, right? concern, AC blows warm, cause, well, I don't know, it depends on what your diagnosis was. So, you know how we do diagnosis, some cars are already messed up, but if you pull a car in, we're gonna check the AC, and if the AC works, I want you to propose a fault. It doesn't have to be like a major fault, it can be something a little more simple. Then as soon as you get a car faulted, you'll be ready to get in the rotation to diagnose as many cars as you can. And that's gonna primarily be tomorrow. And then Thursday will be, Wednesday will be Kahoot, AFC prep, all that type of stuff. And I've also got some leftover burgers from 4th of July. So but matter of fact, I don't really need to bring those in. We got a grip of leftover food. You're gonna be eating good all week. So if anybody wants Italian food, I think we'll break into that tomorrow. If anybody wants burgers, I think I'll bring them in Wednesday. And then Thursday, we'll have an opportunity to do a few little things, but Wednesday will probably be pretty light. So Tuesday, Wednesday are gonna be heavy. Thursday is gonna be pretty chilling, okay? So be ready for that. So you will be doing your diag. Once you get one made and okayed with me, then you get in the rotation, you'll diagnose as many. Pick one and write up a really good story so I can give you your story, or like evaluate your story. Okay, so now let's get ourselves into the diagnostic mode. We're gonna do, I'm gonna get you set up on these, and then I have a couple different thoughts that I wanna do. And I definitely wanna review them, so if you guys go right here, 752 instructions and reference, we'll do the first one together. And then I'm actually gonna give you guys an amount of time to do your own. And then we're gonna come back and review them, okay? So this is a reference. You'll need to reference this when you do the actual simulations. So I would download this, and I'm actually gonna open it up off screen, 752 simulator instructions. Okay, that one I'm gonna open. Good. So, in this reference, it's gonna actually give us a graph, right? So remember when we talked about the static pressure? If let's say outside, what do you guys think it is outside where you're at right now?
Like 80.
Alright, so if it's about 80, we'd follow 80 up, and at 80 degrees, we should have this much pressure, so that's probably 70, 80, 90, probably about 90. At 80 degrees Fahrenheit outside, we should have about 90 PSI of refrigerant pressure on the high and the low without it running, just static, right? So there's a good diagnostic tool. And then this will actually show us a little bit more about the simulator and some instructions. And this gives you a whole bunch of instructions, but I'm gonna give you the instructions as well. All right, and then down here, it gets a little deep and thick into humidity. And to be honest, I don't really know how to read this very well. What I definitely know, there's a couple ways to go forward with this. You could try to understand the details of this graph and relative humidity, and then you should be able to come up with like what temperature the AC should blow at by interpretation. But what I don't do it like that. I would always go for the compare to a known good, right? Because there's no chance of error if I do compare to a known good, okay? But in the case that you want to know the science behind it, it has to do with the dry bulb temperature, the relative humidity, the wet bulb temperature, and that's how you'd be able to figure out what the humidity is. And I don't really do that. Okay, so that's mostly what this is about. It's just the instructions. And I thought it had the link, but if it doesn't, I'm gonna get the link for you anyway. Okay, yeah, I don't think it does. So we'll keep that open. And this is graded, so you need to do your best. Okay, so then we've got. Oops, down. Where are we at here? Simulator should be right here. All right, the worksheets are right here. There we go. Thank you. I was confused. This has the actual link. This one will give you the breakdown. So you're gonna go here. You can copy it, or, you know, if you download it, I believe you can click it, but I'm just gonna copy it. Go to here. Okay, and then here we go. By the way, there is an electrical wiring diagram simulator. Did you guys get to use that yet? I know you didn't, but I would.
No,
So if you're struggling with electrical, you could actually come in here and do some tests, put your turn signal on and etc. Right, and you can actually measure the voltage and stuff, get your meter out, drop your leads where you think they would be. Right, put it on volts, 12, 12, 0, 12, 0, 12, 0, 12, right? So that's a cool little detail. But for us, we're doing AC. All right. Now, if we're looking at this, what do you think? Well, first off, let's just do default. This will be good. Is the AC system working right now? Can you tell?
No,
Yeah,
it's not.
it's not working.
How do you know?
The pressures.
I slide it low.
Look at the pressures. What are the pressures reading?
It's still static.
damn,
Static.
Yeah, they're still static. That's a perfect way to put it. I agree with you. They're the same. They're static. The system's not moving. And in fact, if you look at the compressor, the pulley's spinning, but look at the pistons. They're not doing anything. If you wanted to test it further, you could actually get your temperature gun. What the heck's the temperature gun? Oh, can I do that? That's weird. Where is I guess I have to turn it on to test it first, okay? I was gonna actually try to put the temperature gun on the vents, but we have to turn the AC on, right? Now the AC's on, is it working?
yeah,
Yes, look at our pressures, right? We were, I don't know, I'd say about like 175 on the high. About maybe even 180. About 22, 23 PSI on the low. The ambient temperature is 80%. We don't generally get to change this. Oh, we can actually. I didn't know that you could change that. I never really do that. Interesting. So let's leave it at 100. We could get our temperature gun and we could measure the vent temperature, which would be here, here, and here. So our vent temperature is 42 degrees, in the middle. What do you think about that?
That's pretty cold.
That's jamming, that's banging, that's nice. No
You
issue. Now, if you
Look-
wanted to, you could undercharge it a little bit. There's blowing 84. You could overcharge it a little bit, blow a little warmer. Warm. Well, is it? Yeah, that's kind of interesting. So I don't usually play with the refrigerant charge because you don't really do that in real life. But yeah, I mean, we can measure the temperatures. If you look at the evaporator, it's actually 30 and 33. So that's pushing it to the limit of where it's going to start to ice over. You can measure the temperature going into the TXV. You can measure the temperature coming out of the evaporator, going into the compressor, coming out of the compressor, going into the condenser, at the evaporator, the receiver dryer, coming out of the, you can measure all these places, right? So just understanding what should be hot, what should be cold is going to be helpful. The other thing you can do, you can get the tech stream out and you can see a few things on the tech stream, what the evaporator temperature sensor is. So if the evaporator temperature sensor is 41, do you think the temperature sensor is good or bad or what?
It's good. It's reading normally
How do you know?
because you just check with the gun and it's reading around the same.
Exactly. That's exactly how you test that sensor. Right? And then if you look right here, the regulator pressure sensor, sensor, so this is actually gonna be the refrigerant pressure. And that's probably gonna be on the high side. So 177 on the high side, does that align with the high side gauge?
Yeah,
That sensor's probably good. Only one that's a little tricky is the flow sensor is not very well explained, and the regulator control current is not very well explained. The flow sensor is actually measuring the volume, the quantity of refrigerant passing through the sensor. And then the regulator control current, that's the solenoid right here, and that's what controls how much the piston stroke is gonna be. But you can do a little bit with the texturing. Okay, so the next one, I actually need to open up the worksheets, 752 worksheets. No, I think it's called simulator. Okay, here we go. So you need a few things open, so this is gonna be a little tricky for you to do, but the first one. All right, bug number one. Okay, bug one, 2012 FJ Cruiser, what's the customer's concern?
AC doesn't work.
Yeah, what are the conditions? Right, so now you know what the conditions are. These are your possibilities for the diagnosis. These are also the same possibilities that are on the quiz. So the quiz is gonna give you the same A, B, C, D, or the same 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, but you have to know how to access it. And that's why I'm showing you that. So if we go over here, we're gonna turn on bug one. There you go. Why is it static right now?
the AC isn't on, turn it on.
Turn it on. Okay,
Hey,
what happened?
The AC is
pressure's
not.
really high on the low side.
It is. But what about the high side?
It's about the same.
Yeah, it's almost like it's still static, huh?
Yeah,
Can you see the temperature where the condenser? No, no, the condenser?
It's-
No, I'm sorry, evaporator. I'm sorry, evaporator.
Gotcha. At the vents,
it's
right?
hot everywhere.
It's
No,
blowing
no.
95, it's blowing ambient. On the actual evaporator?
On the
95?
sensor of the evaporator. Evaporator temperature sensor.
It doesn't necessarily show exactly where that's at. I'd say it's probably closest to here. Right, because this is actually the bulb for the TXV. It's similar to a sensor. The sensor would be poked in here somewhere. Looks like I see 95 everywhere.
Yep, all the lines are the same color. That's bad.
Yeah. So everything's 95. All right, cool. So anything else anybody wants to do?
Well, the compressor isn't even working, I mean,
Yeah, but I turned it on already. So
Yeah,
what the
but
heck, man?
but it's not
What
working.
the hell going on here? You want to put the text stream on it?
You think maybe
Well,
it's
I
like
mean-
the safety switch that like when you overcharge it, it'll automatically like cut the compressor off.
It's interesting. All right, so this one, it's static, right? The compressor won't turn on.
There's
If you
no,
look at it, what do you think about the temperature sensor?
Accurate.
being accurate, yeah.
What do you think about the pressure sensor?
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the gauges are showing.
And see, I just don't know a ton of, I think the flow sensor at almost 5 volts means no flow. And the regulator current's basically not even trying to actuate the pistons. It's not even trying to do a stroke, right? And that's all we got. This is all you get.
There's
You
no,
don't get any more tests. So the bigger question is, do you feel like we're ready to answer this?
Yeah,
Let's jump back to those worksheets. Okay, we agree. AC doesn't work, ambient temperature 95, relative humidity 95.
System is overcharged.
Before we jump on something, how about we eliminate some things? What?
If it's overcharged, then the compressor would still work.
It mostly would, unless it's, yeah, I think it mostly would, actually. I tend to agree. If it's overcharged, a lot of times what'll happen, it'll refrigerant out of the system like that. So if right now all we've got, don't pick the right one, let's eliminate the wrong ones.
And then the condenser fan, that one would cause the high pressure to be higher, not static with the low pressure. So it can't be that one.
I agree with that one. Does everybody follow that logic? If your condenser fan is in up, that means your condenser is gonna be very hot, and that's the high side. If your high side is hot, what's your pressure gonna be?
High.
Really high.
Very high. Is that what we had on the simulator?
No.
No, we had static.
Exactly, so I agree, we could eliminate that one. That one, I'd eliminate that one for sure. Alright, cool, so I'd cross that one off. What about anything else we can eliminate?
The open coil
No.
would not allow it to engage, which it is not engaging because it's not.
Hey, don't you tell me what you think it is, tell me what you know it isn't. Anybody else? We got quite a bit from Jonathan and Eddie. You guys have done great. I want to hear from someone different. And Jose gave me a little bit too.
No refrigerant in the system because there is the low pressure is pretty high.
Pressures, yeah.
Alright, so yeah, if we look there, if it was low. Look, we've got like 114 pounds right here. Now, don't forget, we've got that reference that we can look at, right? The temperature was what, 95, correct?
Yeah,
So that's like
Yeah.
right around here. So if we follow that up, 95 should have about, yeah, like maybe 115
yeah,
pounds, does it?
yes, it does.
So what's that tell us about the refrigerant level?
Zero.
It's normal, right? That's the missing piece that you guys need to make sure you understand. These pressures, I agree, are static, but are they correct for the 95-degree ambient temperature? That's when you'd go ahead and you would look at that chart. And the ASC won't have this chart, by the way, but it still gives you a good reference, you know, for this one. So I would actually say it's not undercharged or overcharged. I'd say it's perfect. So if that's the case, can we eliminate number 1? Can we eliminate number 4?
Yeah,
And I think we'd already eliminated number 3, right?
Yep.
So what's our answer?
open coil and the magnetic. field.
And now if we think this is our answer, let's see if it makes sense. An open coil in the magnetic clutch relay, we jump back this and we say, well, shoot, could that make sense? I mean, we're commanding the AC on and it's just flashing and the compressor never kicked. Why didn't the compressor kick on?
Because the relay is not. fully-
Because the magnetic flux didn't have it.
Exactly, that one would make a lot of sense. So that would be correct for this one. Make sense?
Mhm.
You've got 10 of these to do. We did one together. How much time do you think it will take you to do these 10? Because what I want to do is give you the time to do the 10. And then I want to come back and review each one of them together. Make sense? You guys think you can do 10 of them in a half hour? I mean, 9 of them in a half hour?
Yeah.
Probably.
I think so too. You do them on your own. This is gonna get you in the right state of mind for when we review them. That kind of makes sense? So as you guys are ready, you can see you downloaded them. Daniel, I'm gonna get you a copy of how to do this right now. I'm gonna put this in the chat. I'm gonna put this for everyone in the chat. Okay, and then The question is, how am I gonna give you the ref? I got an idea. I'm gonna drag those into my Google Drive. So if you guys are good, go ahead. Turn your cameras off and mute yourself. And then go ahead and jump on these. And if everyone's on their way home, like it's all good. If you can't do these, don't do them. But this is the plan. So this is the plan to get you in the right state of mind where we can walk through these various diagnostic situations. So if you're driving home, cool, just get as much done as you can. In 30 minutes, we're gonna review everything we've covered. So actually, no, I think you're good. I'm gonna make sure I get them in my Google Drive folder.
Hey Kelly, quick question.
Go ahead, shoot it.
Since I got here late,
Yeah.
how do you download those?
Canvas. Right here, you go to Canvas. Canvas has under the simulator, it should be right here, there's the reference, and then there's the worksheets. And then you're gonna do them, and then you jump on the quiz and you answer them on the quiz, because I do want to actually see your score.
Okay, I see.
So it's all right there. But what I'm gonna do for Daniel, I'm gonna go and put this in the study guide. A7. Okay, I've actually already got I've already got it there. So I just need to shoot you this link, which I think I might have already. Control C. Actually, no, I need to do it. I need to do something specific. I need to hit share. Okay, so this will be, just in case anybody's struggling to get on Canvas, I also put it in a Google Drive link right there. So this will get you pretty close. Okay. So you have till about 5:15. And if you need something to speak up, I'll be right here, but I am gonna button up a couple things. I have some prep videos I want to put in the study guide. Okie dokie. See you in a half hour, but speak up. I'm here. I'll hear you. But I'm gonna mute and turn my camera off.
Mm. Okay. Okay.
You talking to yourself, Eddie? Alright, so we'll jump in there. Screen 2, so bug number 2. Let's go through the diagnosis. If we turn the AC on, you'll notice that we're getting 200 on the high, 22 on the low. We can see we got about 59 evaporator, 204 high side. Flow sensors and regular control current were, I think that means this thing is running maximum stroke and it's got a medium amount of flow. So if we change over to the temperature. All right, that's interesting. Now, actually, I don't remember what the customer's concern was on fault 2, so let's go with that. Fault number 2, 2013 Highlander. Customer states on hot days, the driver's side does not cool. Oh, interesting. Conditions 105, bright sunshine, 50% relative humidity, so that's pretty sizzling. Okay. Let's jump back to what we saw here. How do you think we could verify that customer's concern?
Check
You
the
do
temperature at the
temperature
vent.
check.
All right, so we've got 76, 83, 87. Now that's kind of interesting. And I mentioned this to you guys a couple times. It's possible that an evaporator could cool more in the beginning and less in the end. And you can see it is picking up 11 degrees from beginning to end. So if we were to look at this, we got 27 coming in, 54 here. It's already up to 64 by the end of that evaporator internal temperature. So by the time it leaves, 76, I mean, there is something wrong there. That's not good. Any other steps you'd like to do to get an idea of what we're working with?
Look at the temp sensor data.
Okay. Temp sensor says 59 degrees. We'll jump back over. I mean, that's probably right. It's probably right in the middle. So cool. I checks out with me. We could again look at the regulator pressure sensor. It says 204. If we look at the high, that looks like about 204. Checks out to me. We could check all these temperatures. It doesn't seem, it's a little high, but it cools it down, so it's probably all right. I think my next step would be jumping back into that reference, which I had open here. What's the temperature outside in this scenario? Yeah, like 90, 95, 100, 105.
105.
All right, so at 105 with the static pressure, we should be around like 135, 140. So if we turn the AC off, does that look like 135 or 140? Doesn't look real tight to me.
No.
We turn the AC back on, we could take, so to me, the static seems like it's maybe a little low. Then if we look at this reference, it doesn't give us a ton down here, and that's the thing, if you were to run through this, I believe I put. If I didn't, I'm gonna show you guys kind of a cool little detail. R134A pressure chart. We'll go with a chart. We can click on this one here. Okay. So it's 105. I'm gonna open this in a new. Open image in a new tab. So it's 105 and you didn't have this, so I own that. You didn't have access, to this, but now we're covering it. Toyota's really great, but they like to focus a lot on the static pressure more so than the running temperature. So I'm gonna add this as a supplemental to you. 105, we're expecting about 50 to 55 on the low. About 330 to 335 on the high. That sounds really high. Does that sound really high to anyone else?
Yeah,
It's because it's 105 ambient. A lot of times when we're doing our test, it may be 90 or 85 or 80. We're looking at 175, 210, 225, 250, maybe even high as 270. But see, when you're up at 105 degrees, we should have substantially higher pressures. And that's one of the things that can get a little bit confusing is like, that's over 200. So you'd assume it's good, but you forget it's 105 ambient. It should be quite a bit higher. Now, with that being said, we could go ahead and we could take a look at our options. I've already kind of got my mind made up where I'm trying to go. If I go here, looking at these choices, evaporator temperature sensors inaccurate. Did we kind of check that off? So that one's a no, as I recall. So we'll even go ahead and we'll put it off. Air in the system we haven't discussed. What do you think about the regulator control current? That's another tough one to eliminate. So I'll tell you what, I'll help you out. Air in the system, you'll probably see something with air in the system. Air in the system, it's kind of like air in your tires. When you have air in your tires and the tires get hot, what happens to your pressure?
Goes up.
Right, but if there's air in the system, the air in the system is like circulating. So the air will be in the low side, no big deal. Then the air will get to the compressor and go in the high side. And all of a sudden, because the air will heat up, air changes pressure a lot with temperature, and it'll actually make spikes. Your high side pressure your needle will be spiking like this. That's real common for air in the refrigerant, so I would go with a no. Now we're between it's undercharged and the regulator current's too low. And I'll agree, this one's a tough one. And just in typical ASE format, it's like, is it too low? Is it not? I'm not 100% sure. So if we were to go back to that one and try to eliminate it a little more properly, 997, I'm pretty sure the most we ever really see is 997. So it doesn't seem too low to me. But if I'm unsure, I could also consider that other one. What do you think about the systems undercharged? Anybody got any thoughts about that? The system's undercharged based on what I showed you?
yeah, because it should be about 100 pounds heavier.
Yeah, so when we looked at these numbers here, it seemed like it should be higher on the static. And then when we looked at that actual dynamic chart, yeah, it should be way higher. It should be, I'm gonna clear those. It should be quite a bit higher. Clear all drawings. So I'd actually go with it. I think it's undercharged. Anybody disagree? My answer is undercharged. Boom, congratulations. You guys follow how we got to that conclusion, right? So about the ASE will probably not give you ambient temperature conditions. You'll probably assume it's something like 80 degrees, 80 to 90 degrees. So if on the ASE you saw 225 for the high and 30 for the low, you're probably in the ballpark. And once again, we'll review this chart. So like, let's say 225 and like even 45, right? 225 and 45 would be good for 85 degrees. We could even have 40 on the low and 175 on the high, and that would be about an 80. They're probably not going to ask you questions up here at 110 and 105. Why do you think?
It's not common.
In most places of the country, they don't see those numbers. So it would be crazy, like to me, when I moved to California, I thought like 250 was like the highest that AC ever really reached. We didn't have days much over 90. The humidity was horrible, by the way. I would take 100 in low humidity over 90 in high humidity any day, no
Yes.
doubt.
Facts.
But for anybody in the north, they don't see numbers in the 300 range. They just don't see it. So all your sweet spot for ASC is going to be down here around 80 to 90. So just remember these types of numbers: 40, maybe 50 on the low, 175, maybe 270 on the high. That's your sweet spot. Cool. There will be nothing on static, so just FYI. All right, so now I'm in the wrong things. Here we go. Let's go with bug number 3. You guys all satisfied with the explanation of bug 2?
Yes.
Good. All right, bug number 3. The problem with bug number 3 was 2013 Camry with a 2GR. Customer states AC cools well on the highway, but not around town. It's 100 degrees, partly cloudy, 40% relative humidity. Honestly, these are not really critical. This is important. Okay, so 100 cools well on the highway, but not around town. Alrighty, let's jump back to that. Turn the, first off, if you want, you could take a look at the static pressure. Reading about 120. What would you do with that? Well, depends. If you wanted, you could actually go to your chart. If it's 100 degrees, what should we be at? We should be about, yeah, maybe a little under.
Right
Maybe
around.
118, maybe 115, but we're probably in the ballpark, so that gives you a clue. But not the whole story, so let's turn the AC on. All right, how are you gonna verify this concern? Right at the temp. Ooh, it's 75. Yeah, 75. Customer's not happy. Kind of interesting. 75 degrees, okay. Anybody else got some other ideas?
The high side temperature gauge is very high.
It is pretty high, huh? Alright, so if we're getting 40, we're blowing at 75 out the vents, 75 to 74. I'm seeing like 40 in the evaporator. What do you remember for the evaporator temperature on these previous questions? Like on a good one.
Like 33, like 30.
Yeah, they shouldn't be at 40. So for some reason, this is a little too warm, which makes sense because it's a little too high, I would say. Yeah, it might actually not be too high, though, now that I look at it, but it's definitely too warm. So on the high side. Whoa, baby, that's a little warm. 190. I mean, that seems a little bit warm to me. And that would make sense because our high side is pretty high. At 100 degrees, we're running about 350. What would that chart call for? 100 degrees.
Right under that. It's a little high.
Yeah, it's a little high, isn't it? All right, so now we're gonna need to think outside the box. And in fact, let's take a look at that low. At 100, we should be like 50 to 55. So actually, our low is fine. In fact, our low is actually maybe a little bit too low, if I remember right. We should be 50 to 55. Yeah, our low is a little bit low. Our high is a little bit high. That's kind of interesting. Now we could check some other things, it shows we're at 345 on the high. That's a little hot. Evaporator temperature sensor at 55. Seems like maybe a little different. Okay. This one can be strange. Let's go back to our options. How about that? If I can't figure it out, I can always go back to my options. what can we eliminate?
Undercharged system.
I would agree. I think we can eliminate undercharged. So let's eliminate A. I'm gonna draw on it. It's probably gonna make a mess, but I'm gonna draw on it.
I have a question about undercharge.
Okay, go ahead.
What would they show on the gauge if it was undercharged?
It would be low, low. So the low would be too low and, which our low is a little too low. But the high would also be too low. Make sense?
Yeah.
When it's undercharged, low, low. When it's overcharged, high, high. The low is high and the high is high. Cool, so this is kind of different. Our low's a little low, but our high is definitely a little high too.
Well, I had a question about the overcharge.
Okay, go for the overcharge. Sure.
If it's overcharged, what would the customer's concern most likely be?
That isn't blowing cold,
Low,
as cold.
this would be high. High. High, high. What's, remember when we talked about the physics of AC? We need the evaporation to occur and the condensation to occur in the right places. When our pressures are messed up, the evaporation and the condensation may not occur in the right instances we want them to. If it's overcharged, it will blow warm. It'll blow warmer, absolutely 100%. So.
Or what about, what would you see like, what else would you see like besides?
High, high. Your low side would be high and your high side would be high. Higher than spec. Right, so then it would just be the car comes in blowing warm, you hook the gauges up, you could static pressure test it and your static pressure would be high. And then you'd start it and your low would be high and your high would be high. It's happens all the time.
And the components will be strained too, like if it was overcharged, obviously, like maybe like the compressor would be working too
Alright,
tough,
so
or
it kind of depends on just how much we're talking. So let's just say it was way overcharged. And we can't adjust that amount on this one. Let's say it was way overcharged. That high side can only get so high before a sensor actually turns the compressor off. In which
We can-
case, it self-protects. And there's one other possibility. There is an overpressure, a PRD, a pressure relief device, a lot of times on the AC compressor. And that can actually spit over pressurized, it can actually release, and then you'll end up with oil and dye all over the compressor. But you won't find a leak. Air in the system could also cause the overpressure relief device to, it's venting basically. So overpressure can cause some issues, but it would never cause an issue where the compressor is going to blow up because first off, a sensor would fail safe it to turn off. Second off, the pressure relief device would start to vent it out anyway. And that's what's crazy. If it's overcharged, it could actually vent out and get closer to being correctly charged. And you'll bring it in and be like, it's working fine, but there's dye everywhere. What the heck happened? A little bit of a mystery for you.
and then if there's air in the system, then the pressures would be high.
The low would be normal probably, but the high would be, the high would, when the air hit the high side, the high would spike up. Not with like a rhythm, not like a bad reed valve, but more just like, you know, pop, 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 pop.
Like
Almost like
inconsistent.
inconsistent and erratic and crazy. Yeah, but on the high side, you'll notice it. Yeah. So this one though, we haven't really got a ton of traction on, so, I mean, we agree with it not being undercharged. Do you feel like it's overcharged? Is it high, and is it high on the high and also high on the low? Cause if we look at, you know, you're at 35 and 350, if we look at our chart at 100, we should be at like 55 and 315 to 325. So is
The
this,
low is low.
So they're not both low and they're not both high. The low is a little low and the high is a little high. That's not overcharged or undercharged. You understand? And that's what I was writing right there. If the, if it's high, then it's overcharged. If it's low, it's overcharged. Comprende? So what else can we eliminate?
Number 3.
I agree. It's not that one. So now we're left with the evaporator temperature sensor is not in the correct section of the evaporator or in-op condenser fan.
In-op condenser fan.
And I could almost see a little bit of this. Because if you actually noticed a small detail and the people who did this actually did a really good job because ASC will give you this type of stuff too. They did a little detail, I'm gonna pick this up. Can do a little detail where, hey, if you look at this, the evaporator temperature sensor is 55. Click on this, these are reading 40. So I think we could actually make an argument for the location of that temperature sensor. But
Or we could say it's faulty altogether. Like
if
it's
we look
reading
at
bad.
this, I mean. This, that's, you know what, that's tough to say, actually. I think personally, I would go for the condenser fan and op. The condenser fan and op is pretty typical. It will cause the high side to be too high. The reason I don't think I would go with the evaporator temperature sensor is because if we look at this, the control current. That is very interesting. I don't think I've ever really caught on to this one before. I may decide to change my mind.
No, but also how the question was worded, it kind of guided you towards the condenser fan because of the highway speeds.
It did, and I've always picked condenser fan, but I'm actually going to change my answer for you. Although I'm not gonna update the quiz. The reason I'm gonna change it, I have the answer key. And as I recall, I think it's the condenser fan according to the answer key, but I have a very interesting point. If the evaporator temperature sensor says 55, then why is this reading 40? So put it the other way, if this is reading 40, why the heck is the temperature sensor reading 55? That makes sense. Maybe the temperature sensor's fallen out, it's laying in the bottom of the box. In which case, it would think the condenser, it would think the evaporator is too warm. And what would it do to our compressor to try to cool the evaporator down?
Run it.
Run it further stroke, right? And if it were to max the stroke out, that would pull the low lower, wouldn't it? What would it do to that?
Yes, because it's pulling more of the
Exactly,
vapor in.
it's drawing the refrigerant down, so it's gonna bring it to a lower temperature than it should be. I agree with you. But what would that cause on the condenser? Or on the high side, I should say,
Higher pressure.
right? Because it's pumping like crazy, so it'd bring it up to higher pressure. That would actually match really well. The only thing is, the reason that's not the answer in the answer key is because if it were to do that, we would actually get nice cold temperatures. So it wouldn't cause this concern. Because, remember, if you look here, it's blowing at, what we're getting like 75. So the reason it's actually getting 75 is we have so much heat in the condenser, not all the heat energy is being pulled out of it, right? We shouldn't be at 350. We should be able to pull this down to like 320 or 310. Why is it staying up at 350 rather than 320 or 310? Figure that out.
So the condenser's not being cooled down.
Yeah, exactly. The fan isn't cooling it down enough. So if we already have heat energy that's left in there, it's going to be harder to actually cool it. And that's why you're seeing the evaporator, it comes in warm and it just there's too much heat in there for it to be able to really cool it all the way down. So that fan not working is gonna end up causing it to blow warm. Cool. That one was definitely tricky, for sure. One of the trickier ones in the whole activity. So let's just note that one. I would go with the in-op condenser fan. We could make an argument for this one, but I would go with the fan.
Kelly,
Go ahead.
isn't like the wording as well, like clues to, the type of answer you would also choose?
Like, what do you mean?
Like, you know, where it
Mean the
says,
symptom, like
you
right
know.
here?
Yeah,
Exactly. Yes, exactly. So just the fact that it's cool on the highway, right? Why is it cool on the highway? Because the evaporator temperature sensor jumped back into place? No. Why is it cool on the highway? Airflow, exactly. Exactly. Somebody was definitely trying to put this one in here as a distractor, and this time it kind of drew me in a bit. When you go around town, you don't have the airflow anymore, you're relying on the fan, and the fan's not working as well. So let's go to 4, customer states AC doesn't cool. Basically, that's all we really need to know. So if we jump onto that one. 4.
It's the alternator.
Yeah, it's probably a bad distributor. More than likely it needs a carburetor adjustment. If it's 90, take a look at that, 90, and those temperatures look like they're reading a little over 100. What, anybody got a prediction on the static pressure?
That looks okay.
Probably, yeah, it looks like it's gonna be pretty good. Alright, so turn the AC on. Now we've got about 100 and shoot, what's that, about 130? On the high, we've got about 9 or 8 on the low. That doesn't look good. How about we temp gun it? Let's verify. Alright, it's blowing like full on ambient. It's blowing very close to ambient. We could check some of these. You can see, oh wow, that's interesting.
5 degrees.
5
There's a
degrees.
huge restriction there.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, well, we could do this. We can go with evaporator temperatures about 78. That makes sense. Right? What was this pulling at? Well, no, I mean, it kind of makes sense. It depends on where the sensor is. Regulator pressure sensor 131. That makes sense. This AC compressor is working to max, almost an amp. That's good. So, all right. Let's consider our options again.
40,800.
That's your answer, 40,800?
No, that's what you had on the map.
Oh,
on
yeah,
the-
we were doing some crunching numbers. That was, if a lube tech makes $20 an hour, 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year, that's how much you make. FYI, 2040 is the number of hours in a year. Anyway. So considering this, what would air in the system cause? You remember?
Higher pressure.
Erratic. But you can see that on the
Right.
gauge. The gauge can move. Exactly. So I'd eliminate 2. What about undercharged? Let's take another look at that. Wait, did we kind of already look at that? Let's take a look at undercharged one more time. Well, that looks low and that looks low. Huh. And if we look at this, it's 90 outside, 90, it should be 45. Let's call it 50 to 260 in the middle, 50 and 260. Yeah, these look low. They do look
That's
low.
way low.
But before we jump on it, I'd like to remind you, when I turned the AC off, I was showing about 100 and 100, a little over about 105 and 103 and 103. Then don't you remember, we looked at this chart And at 90. That seems like it's in the ballpark to me. Or is it at 90 degrees?
Yep, just about.
Is that at 110? Yeah, it should be like about 108 static pressure, so I'd still kind of say, I don't know, I think we might be in the ballpark. Interesting. So I wouldn't jump all over the low. But I can't eliminate it. It's close enough where I'm not gonna be able to eliminate undercharged. So now we can eliminate 2, we can't eliminate 3. What about 4? AC system is set to economy mode. What do you think economy mode would cause?
I mean, the air coming out of the vents it's still gonna be too hot for it to be on economy mode.
Yeah, I mean, economy mode doesn't make it what, 88 and 90 degrees. Also, if you wanted to go on economy mode, we'd probably take the regulator control current and back it off and have the compressor stroke a little bit less. So that one, I'm quite confident we can eliminate. So I would eliminate economy mode. I would eliminate air in the system. I'm kind of stuck on undercharged or the TXV. I could make an argument for undercharged, right? Like we talked about it. But the problem is the static pressure doesn't really show undercharged. So now I'm more interested in this. How do you think we could test to see if the TXV is restricted?
Temperature before the evaporator.
Right,
And
temperature, 110 coming in, 5 coming out. How the heck did it get to 5? That's huge difference. Let's go with a default, just for fun. 110 and 27, maybe. Yeah, I mean, so now let's think about this. If we've got a restriction, how would that cause the 5 degrees?
It would freeze up.
Well, it could freeze up, but we got, we're not sure if it's totally frozen. But for now, let's just say, how did it get as low as 5 degrees? Remember, temperature and pressure have that relationship. So if it's a low temperature, what is the pressure?
low.
Oh,
Right? How would we get low right there?
because there's a restriction, so it's only letting a certain amount of refrigerant pass by.
Exactly. So right here, we'd have normal, and then it would actually draw into like almost a vacuum. I've seen where it'll draw these into a vacuum if there's a bad restriction. And if it draws into a vacuum, there's very little refrigerant that's actually going to flow through. So we might be getting evaporation, but it's a very small quantity of evaporation occurring. So what's going to happen to all that heat that we were planning on absorbing through evaporation? We don't have a substantial quantity of evaporation. So are we going to get the cooling?
No,
I agree. And so I'm very happy with my answer jumping over to the TXV is restricted because I can measure that. And that would be my choice. Cool. Jump to 4.
I have a
maybe
question.
5. Go ahead.
So okay, say the passenger side blows cold, but then it blows like no, okay, so the passenger side blows warm, but
Yeah.
driver side blows like lukewarm.
Is this hypothetical or an actual car?
No, I saw it on the test.
Okay, so it would usually be slightly different. It would usually be the passenger side is blowing cold. And the driver side is blowing a little more like lukewarm. And that's a great concept. And the reason why that would be more like if you look at,
different system.
if we're back at 4, you'll notice it's blowing at 30, it's a little cooler here, 35 here, right? 35 here, but by the time it gets to the end, it's 50. That's because we really don't have enough refrigerant. The refrigerant's going to come into this, it's going to begin with evaporation, but it's only going to evaporate just a little bit because there's not much, and the whole rest of this is going to have no evaporation. So we might get a little cooling here, but then we're going to get no cooling here, and we do. 82 in the beginning, By the time it gets to the end, it's at 90. That's because there's just not enough quantity of refrigerant evaporating within that condenser. So that's probably the question you refer to. The passenger side blew cool, the driver's side blew a little more lukewarm. There's not enough refrigerant evaporating. Why is there not enough refrigerant though? That's a question that's hard to say. It would depend on what the answer choices were. So like in this one, for example, our options were, right, we kind of know it's that issue. There's not enough refrigerant flowing through. It could be undercharged, or it could be a restriction. The reason it's not undercharged is because we check the static pressure. The reason I'd go with a restriction is because we check the temperature right there on the TXV. This one's cool because it can let you do tests. On the ASE, they wouldn't be able to do that. If you see one blowing cold on the passenger and a little more lukewarm on the driver, the number one answer is going to be undercharged. There's not enough refrigerant evaporating, right? So undercharged is because is going to cause that because there's not enough refrigerant. But if undercharged wasn't an option, I would consider going with a restriction for a TXV. I just don't think ASE will ask you that. I don't think ASE, ASE questions tend to be a little easier, actually.
Okay, and then another question real quick.
Sure, go ahead.
So I saw one that said, okay, he's testing the sun load sensor, but in the dark, what kind of light would you use to test it?
This was a really good question. I'm pretty sure it's a bright white LED, but I talked with this with Marino, and I want someone to find in TIS in the service manual how it says to test one of those sensors, and I would like to source specifically where it says an LED, because I'm not 100% sure on that. So anybody wanting extra credit, if you find it and you can screenshot it, let me know. I will give you the extra credit. Okay, honest answer. Googling it, we couldn't find it, and I didn't take the time to dig through the repair manual. But I'd like someone to. Okay, cool. Now we're on to 5. Good input though. I appreciate that input. 2014 Sienna, AC's an op, 85 degrees, overcast, 95% humidity. Nah, see, I'm out. Ooh, sounds horrible. We'll jump to that one. Bug 5. Okay, here we go. We're looking at about 96 on the static. I'd estimate that's probably about right. We could continue to look at the chart, but let's turn the AC on. Oh, okay. Now we got something new happening here. So what would we consider this to be doing? What is happening there?
Jumping up.
Pressures are fluctuating.
Yeah.
Air in the system.
Could be, but what I also want to point out, it kind of seems like that compressor clutch may be cycling. There's a term for that. It's called short cycling. AC compressor kicks on, it runs for a little bit, it sees the pressures don't really spike up as high as they should, so it thinks it's low on refrigerant. To protect itself from damaging the compressor, because if it's low on refrigerant, there's nothing to carry the oil around, which is the lubrication, it'll shut it off. It'll try again, it'll shut it off. It'll try again, it'll shut it off. That's kind of what I'm thinking, but I'm not sure. So I think my next step would be evaporator temperature sensor says 79. Okay, let's see about that. We're reading 81, 85, 85. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty crappy. Down here, we're at 75 and 80. Yeah, so our evaporator is definitely warm. Coming in, we got 107 and we go to 70. So it doesn't seem like a crazy restriction. Coming out 70, 98, 100, 95. So this doesn't seem overly hot. It just doesn't seem like this is very cool. So, I don't know, anybody got any ideas? When it's on, we're at about 90 in about 130. And then it kicks off. 90 and 130. Take a look here. It's 85, right? What should we be at?
45 to 55.
Yeah, so call it like 50 and 240. 50 and 240. And we're at 90 and no, actually, sorry, with it on, 90 on the low, 140 on the high, so that's pretty bad. But is it low, low? Is it high, high? I don't know. I'm gonna have to look at our options again here. Here we go. What do you guys think about an op condenser fan?
Then the high will be hella high.
And it's not, so I'd agree. I'd go with a no. What about?
Air in this, well, the system under charge, it won't fluctuate that way.
It shouldn't. But it could if it sees that the pressure didn't build and it's turning the compressor off. Then it's letting it run for a little bit and then it's turning it off. So that one's kind of interesting, actually. This is a fairly tough one. Anybody got any other thoughts?
If it was cycling on and off, wouldn't it be going from static pressure to then trying to turn it on the static and trying to turn it on the static?
It would, so let's take a look at that one more time. I've got to put my marker down here. So if you look at this, turn it off, right? Static, we're at 100 and, well, almost 100, probably about 97, 96 and 96. We could jump into that diagram right here. And the temperature's at 85, right? So if we're at 80, 70, 80, 85, we should be around. Doesn't that look about like where we're at? It should be like 97 PSI. So. Yeah, it kind of seems to me like it's not gonna be undercharged. But if the system is undercharged, it will cause it to short cycle like that. But then you
Right,
check the static pressure and the static pressure is good, so there's no reason to think it's undercharged, right?
Yeah, you can cross that one out.
You guys, you follow me, so I don't think it's undercharged because the static is good. So now we're left with a broken reed valve or air.
Didn't you say the air would cause only the high to fluctuate?
So if it caught, let's take a quick look at that one more time. You're gonna turn back on.
He did say that, I remember.
Interesting. Alright, and so if we look at this, our high side is not really getting that high and it's fluctuating. And our low side is not really getting that low and it's fluctuating. That's kind of interesting. And yes, when there's air in the system, it can do a little bit on the low side, but usually it's much more noticeable on the high. So what do you guys think about that broken reed valve? What do you think that would cause?
It would cause a fluctuation on the low side,
Would it be only the low side?
both the low and high side.
I think so, because that compressor tries to pull refrigerant in and then tries to push it back out. And if it's trying to pull it in and push it back out, it's gonna actually be pushing back into the low, which would spike it. And in the high, it could actually cause some suction. So I think that's, we might be onto something there. I'm actually openly, I'm gonna tell you, I usually remember these pretty well. But I don't remember this one super well, so I'm gonna cheat. And I think I got the right answer. Oh, no, you don't. Oh, no, you don't. I'm not showing that to you. So yeah, that's where my head is at, but I actually wanna look it up. Okay, where?
Go ahead or close our eyes.
No, I don't trust you. I'm sure you'll close your eyes, huh? I'm sure you will. Got so much stuff open down here. Let's talk about this. Where is fault 4? Okay. Alright, I'll move this one down. Okay. Oh, we're on 5, huh? Two, three, 4. Okay, we're good so far. Yeah. Okay, just for your reference, how we were talking about the broken reed valve. I'll even share with you, because I agreed with that. I didn't agree with the air. There you go. Good job. Okay. So yeah, we'll go with the broken reed valve, because that's gonna cause the low to fluctuate, because the compressor is gonna push back into the low. It's gonna cause the high to fluctuate, because the compressor is gonna draw from the high unintentionally. Cool, which puts us at 6. Customer states AC does not cool. Customer has attempted DIY repairs. Shocking. It's 80 degrees. Okay, that's a clue. So let's do this one together. Here. Okay. What was the temperature? You guys remember?
80.
Interesting. Well, I already see something that's a bit concerning. So it's 80 outside, okay. Cool. So if we looked at this, if it's 80 outside, 70, 80, 80 should be at about, I don't know, 80 something? 60, 65, 70, 75. Yeah, I mean, like, not even 80, probably 80 should be about 80. All right, here, it's 80 degrees. I'm showing over 110 on the static. Okay, so I already got an idea. Turn the AC on. Oh, baby, broke the chair. Hefty. So if I turn it on, here's what I notice. 250 on the high, 30 on the low. Seems reasonable, but let's check with the temperature. 47, 48, 49. I don't know, that doesn't seem horrible. But the thing is, if I actually look here at 80, I should have 45 to 50, 175 to 210. So I've got 30 and 250. Interesting. Interesting. So, okay. It's a little different. And the customer's concern was, what was their concern again? I don't know, they're just not happy with that 47, I guess. That's the answer key. You don't get that. You get this one. The heck you mean it doesn't cool? Like, is anybody really unhappy with that 40 something? It's kind of interesting. Well, we can, once again, temperature gun around. I just don't feel like that's horrible. We could check our, right, 113, 34, we got 34 inside the evaporator. Doesn't seem bad to me. Okay. Seems a little warm. Interesting. Anybody got anything that they have in mind?
Mm,
Let's go back to that static one more time. Shall we?
The static is high.
Static is high. What does that indicate?
A lot of refrigerant.
Overcharge.
Right, so that's kind of equivalent to like a high and a low high. A high and a high low, I should say. So if we had a high and a high low, I have to get this out of here again. High and a high low. Yeah. There we go. A high and a high low. Can we eliminate this?
Yeah,
Definitely.
and you
Can we
can
eliminate-
eliminate. Yeah, you can eliminate that one too.
Now, what would it look like if the TXV was stuck closed?
Then it'd be like almost vacuum on the low side and then hella high on the high side.
Like that last one with 5 degrees on the temperatures, like it would be very low pressure and very cold. What do you think about the defective compressor?
Then it wouldn't even cycle.
Right, depends on what's wrong. If it had a broken reed valve, it'd be just like that last question, but that's not what we got. What do you guys think about it being overcharged?
Yeah, most DIYers overcharge their stuff anyway.
So they already gave you a clue when it was a DIY repair. But honestly, it's not horrible, but it should be blowing colder than this. So that one is overcharged. So the thing to remember would be typically at 80, we wouldn't be up around 250. Right? We'd probably be a little lower, but we'd probably be like 25 and maybe 200 or maybe a little bit less because we're at 80, right? So if we look at 80, I guess it should actually be a little higher. 175, let's go with the 175 to 210. And then if you look at where we're at, we're like at 250. So it is reading too high already on the higher. Wasn't exactly perfect, but pretty good. All right, so how about 7? 7, and the issue with 7 is 415 Camry, AC doesn't cool well at times with reduced airflow from the vents. And by the way, in the vehicle history, the evaporator was recently replaced. All right, cool, and it's 75 degrees. So let's take a look. 75, right? Now we could look at this. It's 75 degrees, and if you look at our static, we're around 80 and 80. So what do you think about that? We're at 75. What should we be reading?
Yeah, right around.
Like 80, yeah.
Yeah, about 80. Okay, cool. Let's turn it on. Let's get the temperature gun. It's blowing 41, 40. I don't know what the heck. This thing looks sweet. Who's not happy with 41? What was the concern again? What was the customer's concern?
AC does not blow cool.
Finish the sentence.
The condenser was recently changed.
I think it was an evaporator,
Evaporator, I'm sorry, yeah.
but they said something a little bit more. It doesn't cool
Well, at times.
times. Okay. But right now, it's pretty chilling, wouldn't you say? Very been chilling. So what should we do if we can't duplicate the concern?
Ship it.
Or say like, when does it happen? What do you do? How can I make it happen, right? We need to duplicate it before we can.
No, hold on a second, it does change though.
Oh, it does? So, but I'm saying there's no problem found right now and you guys tell me to ship it. You wanna ship it?
No, just take off the
Well, we got
gun.
Thought you wanted to ship it, man. You wanna ship it? What the heck, what the?
No, it does, it changes.
If you put the
I see
temperature
you.
gun before the evaporator, I think you can see a change. Like right after the T, between the TXV and the evaporator.
I mean, the way I'm seeing it, it'd be looking pretty nice right now. It'd be looking pretty nice. I don't really see any issue here.
It changes. You just gotta give it time. Now you reset the whole thing.
Yeah, I know. Usually it doesn't take quite that long though.
Let's say,
I think it might have done it already. So here we are, just, get another car, do another job.
Ship
It's
it.
not- Yeah. We're gonna trip it. Oh.
so how long will you performance test it for?
Well, it would depend on what the customer said. If the customer's like, yeah, it doesn't cool at times, I'll tell you what, while we're waiting, I'll even tell you a story. This is a story of a person that I knew, and someone that I knew them, and someone who knew them knew me. And they went on a big family trip. And they had, they got, it's a traditional family, what you'd imagine a family would be, not like a modern family. There was the parents, and the parents got the kids all rounded up, and they said, hey, we're gonna go on a trip. We're going camping, we're going on vacation. Put them in the station wagon. There you go. You got parents in the front, couple kids right here. You got the baby in the back, kind of in like the trunk area by the glass. You got the dog, you got the cat and the rabbit and the gerbil, all the whole crew's in there. Now, all the luggage is on top of the vehicle. So can you just picture this? It makes sense, right? And they're all in there, and there they go on their vacation, and they get to a place, and they're driving, and all of a sudden the AC starts to blow warm. And not only that, they don't really feel a whole lot of air coming through the vents. Sound familiar? So they stop at at a little local mechanic called Billy Bob's Bait, Tackle, and Auto Repair. Now they sell fishing stuff, but they also repair vehicles on the side. So they stop there and they say, what seems to be the problem? Well, I got all the whole family loaded up, and here we are going camping, and the AC is blowing warm and I don't feel a lot of air. So they get all the kids, park it, get all the kids out. Billy Bob's there selling, those night crawlers, the big fat worms and all that type of thing. And then sure enough, Billy Bob takes off his like cashier's vest and goes and puts his overalls on and come to the vehicle, go to test it out. And it works fine. Gets the customer, hey, everything's good. I fixed it. Works totally fine. So the family jumps back in the car and they drive along. And as you can see, once again, it's working fine. So it's kind of one of those things like, what do you really do? Well, guess what happens again? About a half an hour to an hour worth of driving, and all of a sudden it does it again. And this time they pulled into a little bit more of a certified facility. And the certified facility said, oh, okay, well, we'll check it out for you. The car sits out there in the parking lot, half hour or so. And then by the time they jump in, hey, it's working fine again. The difference was the certified facility said, no problem. We will run it. We'll drive it around. We'll get it to act up again. When it does, we'll be able to fix it for you. So they drive it around, and sure enough, it does it, starts blowing warm, blowing a lot less air. And what do you think they diagnosed it as?
Some type of restriction.
What makes you say restriction?
Because it was blowing
Maybe it was
warm,
freezing.
and then now it's blowing cold. So I mean, it was blowing cold. Now it's blowing warm. So maybe it froze over.
Right, so if you look right here, these 20 degrees, that's a little on the cold side already. What'll happen is, as you're driving it, if that evaporator gets too cold, remember the air that's coming in, your moist breath is gonna hit that evaporator. And normally that turns into water, right? And where's the water go? Out the drain. But if it hits it and it's 20, where's the water go?
Nowhere.
It freezes up. So next thing you know, you run it for a little while, all of a sudden this thing might be actually blowing 41, but it's not going to move a lot of volume because we're trying to blow air through a block of ice. So we can have a perfectly freezing evaporator core, but not a lot of air will make it through, so it won't cool the whole car when the family's on the camping trip. And especially, remember, it's a station wagon. You got the baby all the way in the back, and the dog is panting, and the cat's panting, or whatever cats do. I don't totally understand. And the gerbil, I believe they also pant. Everybody's panting. Because not because the evaporator's hot, but why? Why are the people warm, especially further from the dash? Why are they warm?
The evaporator is not dissipating heat and humidity.
Well, I think internally it is, but how much air is actually flowing through it?
Not much.
Right? So internally, no beef. But externally, when the air tries to flow through it, there's just not a lot of surface area. It can't go through the fins. The fins are all frozen over. And so it'll actually make the AC feel warmer, even though technically the AC is cold. Now, why did it freeze over though? That's kind of where we're at on this. Why it froze over? Well, it could be undercharged, but that doesn't really cause freezing. It could be overcharged, but that doesn't cause freezing. This would be a low, and this would be a high. But instead, we're between evaporator temperature sensors not in the correct position, or expansion valve is stuck open. What if an expansion valve is stuck open? What would happen?
It doesn't get frozen.
It doesn't get frozen. What would the pressures and the temperatures be?
The pressures would almost be the same.
Equal.
No, it
Exactly.
would be,
Yeah, no, equals correct. If it was stuck wide open, it wouldn't make a restriction. There wouldn't be enough of a restriction, so it couldn't build a high. It couldn't draw a low. So that's correct, but that's not what we have. We've got a low that's too low. So now we'll break it down on this more simple model. Honestly, if it's an ASC question, that's probably a restriction. That's probably like a stuck closed TXV. Okay, we're clear on the station wagon story. But in this case, this is an ASC, this is not an ASC question, it's a Toyota question. So we got a few things we can do. Because this has a variable compressor, if we look right here, it's got 997 amps, or 0.997, it's almost 1 amp. That's maximum stroke. Now, if you look, our low is already too low. So why are we still doing a maximum stroke? We must be getting some bad input. Do you think? What other inputs can we see here?
The sensor, the evaporator temp sensor.
Look at that, 58 degrees. What's the actual temperature? 20.
20.
And that's not even close. So if our temperature sensor is laying in the bottom of the box, that would cause the compressor to continue to do maximum stroke, which would actually draw the low too low. Once you get down to 20, the air that hits this, it's going to be frozen. The air that hits it with moisture, that humidity is going to actually freeze to it. You guys can see how the answer would be. What do you think?
The position of the sensor.
Yeah, the sensor's laying the bottom of the box. There you go. Boom. There you go. Nice. Okay, which gets us on to 8. 2012 Camry. Customer states AC doesn't cool well on hot days. And a note, this car's had multiple compressor replacements. Okay, cool. it's 105. And 85% relative humidity. This has got to be freaking Houston. You serious? Ooh, that's a rough one. So let's go ahead on to the actual bug. If we look at this, we're looking at about, shoot, what's that? 120, what's that even read? I think it's about 120 static. And the temperature was 105. So the first thing we could do right off the bat, we could look at this. 120 static. Or sorry, it's 105, 105 degrees. What the heck, pressure should that be? 105 be here. This would be, that's gonna be about like 110, 120, 130, maybe like
35.
130, 140, right around there. Where were we at here?
Tad
Yeah,
bit-
that could be right. I
yeah.
can't tell if we're, yeah, I mean, maybe we're probably in the ballpark. We might be around 130 there. That's a little rough, huh? Static, so then we turn the AC on. What do you guys think? What do you want to check next?
What the pressure should be at that point with 105 degrees.
Okay, 105, we could do that. Actually, first, let's just verify it. We're blowing at 85. So we're not blowing ambient, but that 85 is gonna suck. It's better than 105, but it still sucks. All right, so we're looking at about 26 and 300. If we were at okay, 25, but 300, I think we can really more rely on the 300. 300,
We're
well,
low.
300 is a little low, isn't it? At 105, we should be 330 to 335, and we should be 50 to 55. So that's kind of interesting.
Low, low.
The low is low, and the high is,
Low.
I agree with that. That's kind of interesting. So that's a good, so do you think it could be undercharged?
Potentially.
No.
But if the low is too low and the high is too low, it could be undercharged. You know the problem though? Look, we don't have undercharged. We got overcharged. Could we eliminate overcharged?
Yep.
Definitely. If the TXV is stuck open, what does that cause?
Equalized pressure.
High.
Yeah, at least
Equal
closer to
pressure.
equalized, right? It'd be, the high side would be low and the low side would be high. We don't have that. So I think we can eliminate 1 and 4. Now we're left between 2 and 3. Now take a look at 3. What would an in-op condenser fan cost?
Cause the high to get higher.
I agree, it would. And our high's at 300, but our high should be like 330. So can we eliminate that one?
Yeah.
I would say that we could definitely eliminate that one, which leaves us too much oil in the system. Now you explain to me, why does that make sense?
If there's too much oil in the system, there's like, I guess in like a restriction in a way, in a sense, like the refrigerant can't be like, I guess like, it's not allowed through the loop in a sense, and it doesn't cool as good.
Kind of, but I'm gonna help you out. If you have a lot of oil in there, doesn't that kind of take up the space that's supposed to be reserved for refrigerant?
Yeah.
And our cooling occurs because of refrigerant changing states, right? But when we have oil, oil doesn't change states. Oil just floats around. So do we get any advantage of evaporation and condensation if it's oil?
No.
Nope.
No. So see why I'll take you back to the first week when we learned the physics of AC. We desperately need that condensation in the condenser. And we desperately need that evaporation in the evaporator, or we're not going to get cooling, even if our pressures look fine. You know, we're assuming if you basically put in, if you pressurized it with water, you could get 300 on the high and 30 on the low, but it's not gonna change states at the right pressures, so you would lose the advantage of the latent heat changing state, right? Moving heat like that. So oil in the system would cause this. Additionally, what was another tip that you could have picked up on in the wording?
Multiple compressors have been replaced.
Yeah, so the customer has been putting compressors in, and each time the compressor shows up, it's probably already full of oil. So we put a new compressor in, and then we charge another 2 ounces of oil, and then we put another full one in, and it's hard to get the oil out of there. So this one's just been collecting oil for us this whole time. Cool. So that was 8. Let's jump to 9. 2013 Corolla, customer states AC system cools intermittently. Okay, sometimes, hot air sometimes, with recent body repairs. Okay, cool. 80 degrees, cloudy and raining. All right. So let's go with that number 9 here. So here we go. It's, what was the temperature? 80. So we got about 87 on the static. If you want to look that up, you would say like, yeah, I mean, it's about 80 outside, which would put us about here, which would put us about here. So yeah, so I'd have to say, I feel like we're close, 60, 70, 80, 85, 90, right around there. All right. So let's turn on. How you gonna verify this? What are your thoughts? 45. I'd happy with 45. Who the heck's not happy with 45? Anybody not happy with 45?
Love it.
48, 47, 46, 45. I mean, that sounds good. Like, what do you think? You want to ship this car? You want to boot it?
I say you performance test it for a little bit.
Okay, yeah, let's just keep testing it. Oh, how you doing? Whoa, 78. Yeah, I'm not happy with 78, 79. That sucks. It's broken right now, isn't it? Better test it. Our high side, what's that, about 130? Our low side about 0, maybe 10, something. Interesting. Okay. Okay, I see. Oh, and there we go. All right, so when it's messed up, we were low. We were definitely low on the low, right? We were like a few PSI. Interesting. And then what happened to the high?
Decreased.
Yeah, like right now it looks good, but when it acted up, the high was low and the low was low. So that's almost like an undercharged, right? But if it's undercharged, it doesn't change its mind. It's always undercharged. It's always gonna be the same. So right now we got about a 130 and a 20. And if we were to look at this chart, it's 80. We should have like 40 and 175, 200. So we're not even in the ballpark. That's kind of weird, huh? And then if we were to hook up the scan tool, I don't know, it doesn't, evaporator temperature sensor sort of seems like it could be close. So this one's interesting. You don't get to do a whole lot of testing on this one. You have to have a pretty good idea. So if we were to look at these, what could we eliminate?
Mr. Kelly,
Uh-huh.
when you look at the question as well, they did do body repairs.
True. And that was a giveaway, wasn't it? So this is a clue. When you see the body work, this is a clue. But also just noting that it was fine, right? It was like, when it was working, it was working. So it's not undercharged, it's not overcharged, because that doesn't give us an intermittent. Now, I mentioned air in the system to you, but who remembers what air in the system causes?
Increases the pressure.
Yeah, just like sporadically, not all of a sudden make it low for a few minutes. So I would say no. Why would it be this one? Who can explain to me?
Because when it freezes, it blocks the flow of refrigerant.
Right, and this is one that I struggled with for a bit. If there's moisture inside the AC system, it's gonna come around, it's gonna hit that TXV. The TXV is gonna be very cold. It's gonna freeze on the TXV, collect a bunch, all that moisture is gonna hit the TXV and become ice blockage, right? And this is where it gets a little tricky. See, I thought that would make the low and the high, right? Because it's a restriction. And I think it would at first. But how is the compressor going to make a high side if it's not pulling any new refrigerant because it's so restricted? See what I'm saying? So I tend to agree. I think it would definitely draw the low, very low, if not maybe even into a vacuum. But it might at first make the high side too high, but then I think it would make the high side too low because the system's so restricted, it's not sucking up enough refrigerant to build a high pressure. That one I struggled with a little. Now, why does it all of a sudden normalize?
Because it goes from freezing to condensing.
Exactly. So when it's freezing, it's going to ice it up. But once it ices up, you'll notice, this is actually going to get warmer. And by the time it gets warmer, then all of a sudden, boom, it's gonna take the ice and turn it into what?
Water.
And then it's gonna flow again until that water makes its way back around and eventually accumulates again. So when the AC is working, it's building up ice. And then when the AC is broken, it's losing the ice, basically. Kind of a cool one, huh? All right, which leads us to our last one. Number 10. We've gotta jump back to that page. Numero 10. 2013 Camry customer states AC will not turn on. Oh, interesting. Okay. Let's jump back to the simulator. We're on 10. First off, it's 100 degrees outside. I'm seeing like about 120 on the static. That sounds about ballpark to me. Turn it on. Hello. 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 How you doing? How you doing? We working on here. It's 100, 100, 100, 100, 100, 100, 100, and 100, and 100, 100, and everything's 100. Interesting. Is there anything to test? Look at this. Does the evaporator temperature sensor make sense?
Yeah.
I agree. Does the pressure sensor make sense?
Yeah.
I think so too. And the static pressure seems good. The flow sensor, I don't really know. Wait a minute, what's this here? Regulator control current. Is that normally what we see?
We have no amperage there.
Usually like 1 amp.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. So I have a theory. Shouldn't this be ramped up? Like, shouldn't this be, that should be ramped up so that it'll so it'll pump. It's basically like the compressor's not even pumping. That's very strange. Okay. Well, all we can really look at is the possibilities. We'll fall back on process of elimination. What do you think about no refrigerant?
Maybe.
All right, if it's a maybe and we went here, what's our static pressures?
The same.
If there's no refrigerant, what would these static pressures be?
The same as when it was off.
Low.
They would be the same because the compressor's not running, but they would be low or close to zero if there's no refrigerant at all. I think we can eliminate that one because our static pressure tells us so. So if we were to look at this one,
It's an A.
it's what was it, 100? What was it, 100 PSI? I mean, 100 degrees. I gotta.
Yeah.
So if it's 100 outside and we looked at that, 100 outside would be, shoot, about like 140, 130 PSI. Well, I think that's kind of what we have. Yeah, 120, right? So we got refrigerant in there. It's not empty. It may be slightly low, but maybe not. All right, so I think we can eliminate that. What else can we eliminate? How about, can we eliminate this one? That would make the compressor not kick on, right? What would it also do? What would we see occurring when we're on that simulator?
Oh, blinking AC light.
Yeah, and so that's not what we got here. So I think we can actually eliminate that as well, which leaves us to 3 and 4. Now, how could we tell if an AC amplifier is bad? Has it been misbehaving? I don't really know.
You get no current.
That's possible. But let me ask you this. If you were to look at that sensor, we don't know a ton about that sensor. But what I can tell you is when there's, like, if we looked at a previous one, when there's flow, we got, we got like 2.5 volts with flow. If there is no flow, which we had on, I believe, bug 1, we had no flow. We had 4.14 volts. So like when there's good flow, it's like 1, 2, 3 volts. When there's no flow, it's like 4 volts. When there's a ton of flow, it'd be like 1 volt, right? So this one's not flowing, right? It's static and static. The pistons aren't pumping, and it shows 4 volts. Jump to 10. Pistons aren't pumping, static and static, and it shows 3.28. 3.28 is an indication of good flow in the system. Do you think there's good flow in the system?
No.
I don't think so either, yeah. So what would happen, 2 things. If it set a code for performance of that flow sensor, it may very well disable the compressor. Or if that sensor was reading a reasonable number, the system may not realize it's an error, and it may say, oh, we've already got a bunch of flow. If we've got plenty of flow, what should we do to the compressor?
Turn it off.
Like back it off, exactly, back it off, not make the pistons pump. Now the compressor clutch would still be engaged, but we would angle that plate to 0 and just let the pistons freewheel and they wouldn't really pump. So if it was a bad clutch, we'd get a flashing light, but if it's a bad input, we wouldn't get a flashing light. We may get a code, but if the input's not out of range, and this one's not, by the way, 3.28 volts is fine. We can't go below 0.5 volt or above 4.5 volts, but 3.28 is in range. It's just going to make the system do what it should if it was accurate. And sadly, it's inaccurate. So the system thinks it doesn't need to pump the pistons when it really does. And that's why we've got static, static. So that last one is what answer? Inaccurate flow sensor. That's why. So AC amplifier is not the answer. Inaccurate flow sensor is the answer. Woo, what do you guys think about that activity? Was it fun?
I thought it was good.
Yeah, it's hard though. It's difficult, but it's setting the tone for how we're going to be doing stuff tomorrow, and then what we're going to be reviewing on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, we could do a couple different things, actually. We could do a little bit more study on like Wednesday we'll do the big Kahoot session and stuff, but we could go a little bit more ASC study guides, freeSCstudyguides.com or one of the other things. So I'll give you a few options for Wednesday. If you don't feel like you're ready for this ASC, don't sweat it. I'll give you everything I got Thursday. If you do feel like you're fairly ready for this ASC and you're taking it on Thursday, and you don't come to class, then okay, but you need to send me your results. So I didn't say that class is canceled Thursday. I just said, if it's your schedule that's squeezing you to need to go take the ASC Thursday, cool. But that means you're gonna have to step it up and pass that sucker. And if you're not, I'll catch you in class. And in fact, I could even make it a Zoom for you, so that way I can record it. So that way, if you have any questions, you can always watch the recording or something like that. How's that sound? Okie dokie.
Good.
Well, you guys, hopefully today you learned a little bit about a little bit. We're gonna be set up for tomorrow. I want to keep the recording pretty tight because I am going to share this one with you to and future students. You won't be seen in the video, by the way, but yes. Very good. Now I see something. Okay, good. I see that. Daniel, I saw your thing. So you guys should be pretty good. If you feel pretty good, that's the goal. If you don't, you may need to step it up. I know the AC is tough. AC is tough for me. The schedule is pretty rough. And honestly, you guys have, in a lot of ways, probably a worse schedule. So I bet your brains are pretty fried. Like my brain's fried right now. So I feel for you, but you gotta make it happen. If you're not ready, get ready. As always, you have a week from the last day of class to have that ASC passed. If you don't, I have to put in a grade. So you got to get an attempt. I checked some grades. Some of you need this. Nobody can really afford to get a 0 for that. So, okay, make it happen. You got questions, put on the group chat. When this recording's done, you guys can go dig up the recording in Cypress Zoom. Sound good?
It's incandescent light for the sun load.
Can you show me a screenshot showing that?
He put it on the chat.
Oh, did you? Oh, in the group chat.
No, on this chat, the Zoom chat.
Okay, Marino, whatever you found, get it to me somehow, because I want to include that on Canvas. That's actually what I initially thought, and then I kind of got tripped out on the LED thing. So okay, that makes sense because that's what the sun is. The sun is heat, not a diode. Share it with me somehow where I can see it. Not just that answer, but where you reference it. I need to see the reference. All right, and with that, very good. I'm kicking you out. Make it happen.